Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Kimberly Howard. A woman who gained international fame for helping cities and towns across America dealing with contaminated drinking water is now pledging to do all she can to help the residents of Hoosick Falls. The trial will continue tomorrow, possibly with some more key testimony. The weapon, a .22 caliber, either a pistol or a rifle. The shell casings taken to the New York State Police crime lab.
That's the kind of intolerance that has no place in politics.
What about the intolerance the people in the LGBT community are experiencing from politicians such as yourself?
How does that translate into what your plans are for the national day?
This is now the third time we've asked Empire State Development about where that report is, and for the third time, they've issued us the same statement. Things have calmed down quite a bit here on the streets of Manhattan, but earlier today, a swarm of media blocking the path of Sheldon Silver as the former Assembly Speaker learns that he might quite possibly die in prison.
Step back, please.
He was once one of the state's most powerful politicians, capable of controlling legislation that shaped many New Yorkers' lives. But on Tuesday, former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver couldn't even get out of the side door of the federal courthouse without being blockaded by reporters. Judge Valerie Caproni sentenced him to 12 years in prison on felony corruption charges, saying Silver did, quote, incalculable harm when he used his powerful position to line his own pockets with roughly $4 million through a set of complex schemes.
We plan to appeal.
Silver's defense attorneys are also pushing for him to serve his time at the Otisville Federal Correction Institute, a medium security prison they hope will provide access to better health care. Silver is 72, and although he's in remission, he has been battling prostate cancer, which killed both his father and brother.
That's just what we've requested. We think that's the appropriate facility.
Meantime, the judge says 12 years in prison and nearly $7 million in fines and restitution is the appropriate sentence. Despite more than 100 letters from people attesting to Silver's good character and Silver's own apology, both in print and in court, saying, quote, I've let my family down. I've let down my colleagues. I've let down my constituents, and I'm truly, truly sorry. Some of those constituents aren't having it.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Sheldon Silver must surrender to the feds on July 1st. In Manhattan, Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News. By land and by sky, police scour Albany County searching for 5-year-old Kenneth White. Investigators say he was abducted in the middle of the afternoon from his home on Thatcher Park Road in Bern.
2 intruders forcibly entered the residence, held down a 19-year-old female.
That woman, police say, is the daughter of White's aunt and uncle, who are also White's custodial parents. Police say they weren't home at the time of the abduction.
We're relying on some leads that hopefully we'll be able to obtain from the 19-year-old who was in charge of watching him at that point.
She was also watching 2 other young children, ages 3 and 4, but police say neither of them were taken or harmed.
You would start thinking right off the bat it's some sort of custodial dispute or something to that effect.
Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple says neither of White's parents have custody of him. They won't say why that is, but they do say they're looking for answers from White's family and from any surveillance cameras, as well as neighbors who are on edge.
Shocked, surprised, absolutely.
So many questions about a boy who police fear could have been taken far away in a flash. Many political candidates have been propelled to office with the help of what's called the LLC loophole in campaign finance law. It allows single donors to give unlimited amounts of money by forming as many limited liability companies as they want.
The floodgates have really opened on the LLC loophole. We've gone from essentially what was a river to an ocean.
As candidate for governor, Andrew Cuomo was by far the largest beneficiary of this loophole during this last election. LLC campaign contributions linked to New York City billionaire Leonard Litwin reportedly broke the $1 million mark. Litwin, who heads up real estate corporation Glenwood Management, has a lot of LLCs, but they're difficult to track.
You have to have some sort of, sleuth-like skills to piece together who the powerful entity is behind the limited liability company that's funneling the money.
Many times an LLC is just named after an address. Good government groups aren't only concerned about the loophole itself, but this mask major campaign donors can hide behind.
As long as this continues to operate in the shadows, the public interest will be at risk. The more donations you give, the more likely it is your phone calls get returned.
There have been many attempts to close the LLC loophole through the years, and Cuomo himself has said he'd support it, but a push for the Board of Elections to reinterpret the law failed.
This is not a matter for an administrative agency, the State Board of Elections, to decide. This is a matter for the state legislature.
So the Democrat-led Assembly passed a bill, but the Senate version hasn't made it to the floor.
The Senate Republican majority could put this bill on the floor any day they pleased.
Senator Daniel Squadron says the bill stalled in committee.
It is a dark moment now, but sometimes it's darkest before the dawn. I think that pressure and focus on this is what makes it possible.
Pressure has come in the form of a pair of high-profile arrests. LLCs made a cameo in both the criminal complaints against former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver and former Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos. We asked Skelos if he'd vote yes on closing the loophole, but he just said,
"We will discuss it in conference."
With less than 2 weeks of session left, that's looking less and less likely. Republican Senator Richard Funke gave me some insight as to why.
We're trying to slow the process down a little bit so that we take a thorough look at it because it needs further study. My fear is that there may be a legal challenge to this LLC depending upon where it goes. That's why I want to study it further, make sure it's doing what people intend it to do.
These are the rules of the game, and until the rules of the game are changed, they want to play them as aggressively as their opponents do because they want to get elected to office.
In Albany, Kimberly Howard, CBS 6 News.